Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome along to another instalment of our KUHN Baler mini-series. Throughout this series we have been delving deep into the world of KUHN balers, charting their journey all the way from factory to customer. In this episode we're doing something a little bit different. We are in Shropshire today with dairy farmer Ben Charmley, and you could say we're going to get the proof in the pudding, because we're going to chat to Ben about his experience feeding the bales made by a KUHN combi baler. So that is the plan, and as ever, before we dive into the bales and what you think of them, Ben, just tell us a little bit about your farming business here.
So we are a 500 cow dairy business, and we're spring block calving, so everything calves. We calve 390 out of 500 in February. Most of them are calved down by March. We're a grass-based system, so we're looking to do as much milk as we can off grass with little feed inputs, and then come over the Christmas period we actually dry off, and we've already got some dry now. We're coming up to the beginning of dry off, and that's what are on these bales here, along with some rising 2-year-olds.
And as well as yourself, who else is involved in the business?
Involved in the business, it's a family business, grass-based, regenerative, sustainable business really. My mum and dad are still involved in the backdrop. They're sort of stepping back now, but it's me and my brother Jonathan that are driving the business forward really, between the two of us. We run it jointly, and we believe in this system and what we're doing,
Whereabouts are we today in Shropshire?
We are in the north end of Shropshire, so we're just butting up to Cheshire. You're about 2 miles from the border.
And the land type you're on around here, what would that be?
So we have 60 acres here of very light sandy loam ground, which is why we can outwinter on this ground. The majority of our land is heavy clay,
right,
where the cows would disappear if they step foot on it this time of year on this sort of a system, so we have to be very careful on field selection.
Right, that's it. Well, I mean, today already I've seen, this field here, it's holding up well, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's brilliant really. I mean, we're having a kind time with the weather at the minute,
Yeah, a little bit different to the last back end in 2023. That was a bit of a...
That was very challenging, but we got through it.
Yeah.
Cows were fine. Yeah.
That's it. So, you've explained a little bit about this this grazing system. Just tell us a little bit more about it, how it works.
So, through the summer, we'll be making, like most people make, big cuts of silage in the clamp.
Yeah.
And then all the time they will get little surpluses on the grazing platform. And they're quite expensive to get a chopper out to make 10 acres of silage.
Yeah.
So this is where we'll come in with a baler. We'll bale 10 acres off, and then we just keep baling those surpluses up, and we just keep stacking them on our selected field. And then come October, we'll then place all these bales out. I come with a meter wheel and some reels and measure the field up so I can get my bale spacings correct and work out how many bales I need on the field. And we plonked all these out at the beginning of October, ready to graze. We started them last week.
So just tell us a little bit more about your block calving as well. So when would you spring calving, is it? Spring
calving, so we'd start the heifers at start the back end of January, last week in Jan, and the main herd at kick in first week in February.
Right.
So it's very, 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 very intense.
Yeah, I bet.
For a period, it is all hell breaks loose for 4 or 5 weeks.
Just go, go, go.
But then the beauty of it is then those cows are producing their peak amount of milk when they're at grass. So it's environmentally friendly, it's sustainable, it's low cost, it's regenerative. There's a real push now. You'll see amongst this lay, there's a lot of clover in here. We're stitching in plantain and sheep's bonnet and other herbs into the lays now to improve soil structure.
Right.
And they go into the bales as well, and they eat that. So that's a big driving part of the business now as well. Not we want to make money like everybody does, but there's a big push. The environment's a big thing now.
That's it. Environment's a big thing, and for your bottom line as well. If you can do it the most efficient way, it all helps, doesn't it?
That's it.
And so, like say, your peak milk would be throughout the summer.
That's it.
And what sort of yields would you be getting?
We'd be getting over about 6,500 litres. High fat, high protein milk.
Yeah.
As little this summer, this year's been a tough one because it's a wet spring, dryish sort of summer. We had to feed more concentrates than what we would have liked, but we're trying to keep round the sort of 1/2 to 3/4 of a tonne of concentrates per head.
Right.
So we're doing as much as we can off forage and grass as such, yeah.
That's it, exactly. Making the most of what you got, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Perfect. So then your dry period then. So we're in beginning of November now in 2024. Like we said, so far so good with the weather. It's pretty mild at the moment. When would you sort of be bringing them in? How long would you keep them out like this now?
So the milking herds, they come in at night at the end of October, and they're grazing by day now for maybe another week, 10 days, weather dependent, and then we'll pack in grazing all together. This group here, these are not in milk. These are really on here, so there's more space for the milking cows inside, and these will graze on here till the middle of December, and then once we've dried off completely, we're feeding a lot of hay then, that we can stock the sheds a bit tighter.
Yeah.
All these guys, they'll come into the sheds then, come December, and the deepest, darkest bit of the winter now, we don't actually have anything out on crop really, so you can't, it's only sort of halfway to out wintering. We're only really on it in the shoulders. We're on it in the sort of early autumn, and then again sort of springtime, maybe middle of February, we'll have just a few back out on here while we're calving to make a bit of space inside.
Yeah. And would you say that sort of that time period of them being in, like you say, the deepest, darkest depths of winter, that's more down to, well, where you're based in the UK, like ideally, if the ground conditions would allow, would you try and go for?
We could keep them out all winter, but that'd involve then we'd have to take more ground out of the grazing area.
Yeah.
And it's just, once they are all housed in the deepest, darkest bit of winter, it is a lot easier to manage.
That's it, yeah, they're all in one spot.
For example, if it's a really wet day on here, I will come back at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and I will move them twice.
Right.
So they've got a clean, fresh bit for the night.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're away on holiday, that's a bit more difficult. You've got to ask members of staff to make that call. So in the deepest, darkest bit of the winter, when we're trying to have a break, they're then just in the sheds. It's very simplistic, slightly more labour intensive, but yeah.
But simple.
Yeah, it's simple, yeah.
And would you say your system is getting pretty close to maybe how they would do it in New Zealand, you might say?
So, yeah, it's similar. New Zealand's slightly milder climate. They have very little housing parts. They'll stay out through the entire winter. If it got really bad here, I could pull these off altogether, and I have done it before now.
Yeah.
Said, right, that's it. It's too wet, and we just have to stock tight in the sheds. We make do somehow for a couple of weeks that it dries up, and then they come back out again.
Yeah. So flexibility is a big thing with this system as well.
Yeah. You don't want to be backed in a corner where you've got nowhere to go.
No, that's it.
The cows in general will put up with, if they're not in milk, almost anything. But it's just, you don't want to be ruining your land and ruining your soil structure.
No.
Really. Yeah.
And you were just saying before, like, as you move them up the field, because you aim to go up the field, uphill.
That's it.
And you'll also pen them in behind them as well as you're coming up, so they don't have free rein. So just explain a bit about that.
There's a temporary trough down there. We'll drain that, and then because it's quite lightweight and plastic, we'll pull that back up near them, and then we'll fence them. We'll back fence them in. So let's say you've had a wet period and they've sort of mauled that up a bit. You can then fence that off so they can't keep going back over it and stirring it up as such, yeah. And the ground's got time to rest and recover.
And the ground that you choose, would you say you kind of pick a sacrificial field each year? Is that the way you sort of do it?
That's it. This field now will be fully reseeded in the spring. And we want to pick fields that the indices are not too high on. Because you can imagine with this, all this crop is not being taken away. It's all being turned into muck and put back on the field. So you want to be careful with your soil indices. We don't want to go onto an indice that's already, a phosphate industry that's already at 3.5, because then it's going to go to 4.5, and then all of a sudden the soil's not taking in the phosphate, it's then leaching. So we'll go on a lower indice that can absorb that nutrient, and we can make the most out of it. And, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, talk about a quick turnaround in terms of getting them up back in the ground.
Yeah, no.
Getting it going again.
The cost of slurry pumping at the minute, I'm quite glad for them. They're putting it. That is the beauty of grazing. They spread their own muck. Yeah.
And the breed of cows that you have, what would they be?
So we come from, my dad was a high input system many years ago. That was quite a high cost system. We were struggling to afford the capital expenditure to expand on that system. And that's why we went down this road then of this. We then crossbred to hardier cows. To start off with, everything had a straw jersey on. This was 15 years ago, and we used a lot of jersey. And then we felt we got further enough on the Jersey, and we've tailed back on that now. So we're probably only a 10-15% Jersey content herd, but that cross is important. It makes the hardy animal that can stand up to these weather conditions. Yeah.
Like you were saying before, you've crossed a hardy little Frisian with a hardy Jersey, and you've got a double hardy cow.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Hybrid vigour, they call it.
Hybrid vigour. Like I say, it's, I suppose you could say it's a smaller frame cow than, like, you know, these big high yielding. These Holsteins, you might say. Do you think does the size of the cow being a bit smaller, a little bit lighter, does that help with this system? Is it suited to this system?
Yeah, they're more. You can see they're more compact. If one of these escaped on a field and you tried to run after it, you wouldn't catch her.
It's a whippet.
Yeah, they are. They're quite compact. They're quite powerful cows, you know, and they need to be. And they need to be robust, good on the feet. You know, they're walking a lot of distance through the summer months to grass. Yeah.
Yeah. And the grass that they're on today, you say there's a lot of mixtures in this, a lot of herbal layers and that sort of thing. What sort of state do you want this grass to be in, you know, when you start doing this, when you start grazing them up here?
So we want the field to be rested for a while, so there's a bit of cover beneath them. So, you know, they've got something on the wetter days. That grass helps hold the ground up and stops the field getting mulched up too much. There's no point shutting the field too early, otherwise you'll just end up with a huge crop.
Yeah.
That they just trample into the ground basically, and it's just a waste of feed. Yeah. So we shut, like you say, we shut this off middle of September, really. Yeah.
Right. And it was interesting watching the cows coming through before, as you let them through. Like, you got half of them diving for the fresh grass and the other half diving for the baled silage.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they do that. Some of them, you can see some of them now still going at the grass, picking what they can. The grass at the end of the day is much higher energy, higher protein feed, so I'm not surprised they're going for it.
That's it, yeah.
If we could graze grass all year round, we would, yeah. I wouldn't feed any silage.
And would you say that this type of system, would you say there's any sort of drawbacks to this system as well?
It does add complication, you know. If I had the money and I could put up a huge cow palace with automatic scrapers in and all singing and all dancing, that'd be great. But you know, the return on capital's just brilliant on this. But yeah, there's drawbacks to every system, whatever you do. Yeah.
That's it. There's always pros and cons, isn't there, with everything.
You can have them inside, and you'll go out, and it'll take ages by the time you scrape, fed, and bed. And then you come out here, and you can do 200 animals in 15 minutes. But then on a wet day, you're out in the rain, whereas in the dry day, a wet day in the sheds, you're in your tractor in the dry.
So, onto these bales then. These KUHN-made bales. What are we thinking?
Yeah, they're good. We moved and we work with a really good contractor, really, A.R. Richards. They're a great, you know, they're a real great business to work with.
Yeah.
They do the bulk of our contracting work.
Which we spoke to in one of the other episodes, one of the KUHN baler customers. So he's your contractor for these bales, is he?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's half the reason we're using the KUHN baler, because those guys are such great people to work with. We work with lots of great contractors, to be fair, but this one in particular does a lot of our work. Yeah, and that's why they said they bought this KUHN baler, and the reason we liked it is because there's no net anymore.
No, this is the film on film.
Yeah, so you can see when before we were cutting them open, they're very easy to cut open.
Simple, wasn't it?
They seem to hold the shape. Like these bales were made in June. They were then put in a big stack on the field while we were grazing it with milkers. They've then been picked up again and moved again. So they've been moved 2 or 3 times, like.
Yeah.
And they're still holding the shape. And the other thing, that the wrap doesn't seem to get entangled in the silage. I've had it on other cases. Your first 2 layers of silage have got wrap in amongst it, whereas it doesn't seem to be the case with these. Yeah.
Right. It's just cut it open, peel it off.
Yeah.
That's it.
The net, like you say, we hated net with a passion. And if the net gets mud in it on a field, as you can imagine, it's then very heavy to carry.
Yeah. And then you've got 2 lots of plastic types to dispose of them.
That's it. Yeah.
This is just the one type. And how many bales would you sort of make a season?
We probably make about 1,000 bales of silage, I think. Yeah.
Right. Oh, it's a fair few then.
We feed some bales inside. We feed some squares as well. But I'd say we make good 500-600 rounds. Yeah.
Yeah. And your pit silage, that's for everything indoors, is it?
That's it. The pit silage is for the milkers, really. Yeah. We make this. This is drier stuff, really. For it's geared up for dry cows, really. That wetter sort of silage doesn't really want to be in a bale.
No.
Yeah.
This is bordering on haylage type sort of stuff, is it?
Yeah, more, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those cows don't need that level of energy and protein when they're dry. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I say, they've retained the shape. We can clearly see that around this field. They are still, you know, the shoulders are still
That's it. Yeah.
there. how do you rate the feed quality? Do you think this coon baler that's made these has actually made a difference or made an impact on feed quality as well?
That's much the same. The key to that is not having... The key to the feed quality with bales is down to the farmer, really. It's making it in good weather. But it's making sure there's no holes in them. And we have had it in the past. That might be more down to the film, I don't know. If we've had it in the past, so we've been picking up bales and a lot of them rip. And then as soon as you get a rip in them, even when you've taped them up, the moisture can still get in.
Yeah. And the grass type for the bales, what would that be?
A mixture of stuff. But in general, we'll try and pick paddocks where we've lost quality with the milkers. So the milkers will go round and they'll do, let's say they've done a bad job of grazing, and it'll be because there's stem coming in the plant and seed head, and that'll be the kind of stuff we bale up, and that sort of stuff bales better than lush sort of leafy grass.
Yeah.
That'll be the kind of stuff we put into the bale, really. So then the milkers in the summer, they're having all the top quality leaf, and then we're using all this seed head and stalk to feed dry cows here.
Yeah. Chop length, do you have these bales chopped as well or not?
No, we don't. We can do. If you were feeding them indoors, I think I've had it before, where you fed them indoors, they are better chopped. Because then they do just have a habit of pulling it all out into the barriers.
Yeah.
It gets mixed in with all your slurry. But out here, it doesn't seem to matter so much. You know, the longer chop is actually better for the dries. It holds the guts together.
Right.
You know, otherwise it just tends to go through them as such. We want, you know, the slurry ends up very loose if you have it too chopped. So I prefer it longer chopped in these bales.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I mean, like you say, I mean, we can kind of see behind the cows where you've already fed. They don't really, I mean, do they leave much at all, you know, in the ring feeds? They clean up?
Clean it up.
Yeah.
I'll be watching them and monitoring them, and I'll come down in the afternoon just before dark and have a look at the feed levels on the field and decide if it's getting near cleaned out at 5 p.m. in the afternoon and they're not being fed till the next morning, there's too many on here.
Right.
I'll take some off. And the same goes in the morning. If there's feed left over in the rings, we'll then say, right, we need to add some to here, or give them a bale less a day. So then they clean it all up.
Right.
And then each morning when we come, you see, we then, once it's cleaned up, we can then collect the bottom, which we couldn't get when we cut them
Of course,
open.
yeah.
Then there's zero plastic left on the field then.
Nothing, yeah, it's just all clean, isn't it? And we've talked about, obviously, it's film on film. Do you think that's more of a, I suppose you could say, a hardier wrap system? You know, does it make the bales better to handle? Are you sort of less worried about handling the bales when you're moving around so much?
I think you get a bit less friction. Obviously the net's got a more textured surface that can rub against the plastic, can't it?
Yeah.
And I do wonder whether it's more susceptible to rips with the net.
So these bales then, they're made by, obviously it's the KUHN combi baler that's made these. Do you think the KUHN baler makes a difference to the bales as well?
Yeah, I like this baler. That's why we've stuck with it, you know. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any other balers, but I preferred the bale coming out of this baler, and that's why we've stuck with it, really.
Right.
And it, again, because it's all in one, it makes it a lot easier for AR Richards. Whenever I'm baling, they're like, can we use the KUHN? Because they haven't got to send a wrapper behind. It's just one tractor and one baler. So they can get a job done far quicker for us than if they're having to send a baler and then a wrapper behind to sort the situation, yeah.
Finally then, just sum up your experience with these bales and how they fit into your system.
Yeah, good. They make it work for us. I have enough cubicles, but it's on a small concrete area. So if you get me, when I'm milking out of that on that concrete area, I don't want it stocked tightly. So this has created a shed for us in a way by doing this system. That's how it works for us. That's how I'd summarise it. It's almost like an open air shed. This is, and it fits into the reseeding policy. Then we just reseed this the next spring. So yeah, that's the key of this system. Yeah. Perfect.
Well, Ben, thank you very much for your time. That has been absolutely spot on. In particular, learning about your farming system and how these KUHN-made bales fit into that. And as ever, thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you again next time.